today. As I said, it's a virtual session, but we're doing it hybrid. So we are going to be talking to both. I'm going to be in the room and Amy is managing our virtual process, and we will have, if we can go to the next slide. There are three of us here to assist you with this journey. Theodore Fitzsimmons, Alan Myers, and myself are all passionate coaches, and we've all managed successful coaching programs within government and have talked to a variety of other persons who have also been coach program managers and coaches. And so we've collected a lot of information. So throughout the morning, you will hear a little bit about our experiences. Our bios are in the guidebook, so you're welcome to catch us, to read them and then catch up with us later if you have any questions. But we really want to jump into the program because we know that you're here to hear the information. And so we want to find out who's in the room. And so Amy's going to launch a poll virtually. We'd like to know if you're a coach, if you could just let us know yes or no. And if the people in the room, if you're a coach, could you raise your hand? All right, we have one coach. So we have several people in the room and one coach. So we'll see who our audience online. Looks like we have about 18 people online.
I'm assuming I can vote too, right? Very Kate.
No, Alan, we know you're a coach. I don't want to have any election problems, recounts and all that kind of stuff. It gets out of hand.
If you see that poll question, you can go ahead and hit submit. Are you a coach? Let's see. So we have 12 that say yes and 2 no so far. So 12 yes and 2 no.
Okay, great. Thank you. So a lot of coaches online, just a couple of coaches in the room. We'd love to, then we also want to know a little bit about coaching in your organization. So if you want to launch the next poll, and what I'm going to do is there's 4 options for the coaching in the organization, and we use internal coaches, we use external, which means contract coaches. We use both internal and contract coaches, and we do not have a coaching program. So I'm going to go through each one of them and just ask the people in the room to raise their hand. So if you use just internal coaches in your organization, can you raise your hand? We have 2 people. Okay. And external, just external coaches. Okay. And both use. Okay. So, and then if you do not have a coaching program, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay. So Amy, how is our polling going virtually?
All right. So we have 5 that use internal coaches. 3.
And in the room, I'm sorry, Amy, in the room we have 2. So a total of 7 using internal coaches.
Yep. And so external coaches, we have 3.
We have 3 in the room as well. So 6.
All right. And then we use both internal and external. That is 6. Oh,
we had
let's see.
None.
Looks like you just had one add up there to that. We use internal coaches. We have
Okay.
6 now.
Great.
Oh, numbers are moving a little bit now. And then we do not have a coaching program. That is 0.
Okay, we had 1 in the room that did not have a coaching program. Perfect. All right, so we're going to jump in. We just want to know a little bit about you. We're encouraging you to ask us questions. You can raise your hand in the room and we'll stop and answer your questions. And online, you can use the chat or you can use the Q&A function. We understand for some agencies, the chat function does not work, so you may have to resort to the Q&A function on your system. So I'm going to turn it over to Theodore, who's going to get us started.
Hi there. So lots of you know about coaching. Some of you are coaches, but why is a coaching program an actual opportunity for change? That's where what we are believing that it is, but we want you to think about this for a minute. If you learn to be a coach, you automatically become a better listener. You learn to ask questions in a curious way. You set judgment aside. You develop compassion and empathy. And you learn to appreciate the person in front of you. Now think about this. If you don't have coaching skills and you're a leader, let's say, You may just be caught up in the busyness of the organization. Everybody's busy in the workplace. But when you learn coaching skills, even simple coaching skills, you learn that it is worth making that investment to your direct reports or to others in the organization to listen. You learn to appreciate that. And you learn to set judgment aside. And because you're listening more and asking questions, you develop more compassion and empathy. And you learn to truly appreciate the person in front of you. So our question is there an opportunity for coaching to do something pretty dramatic? And we're going to let you answer that in a moment. We think that something.
Oops. Amy? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
It's like a connection.
Okay, we lost Theodora.
The transmission line between Europe and US got.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue. We're coaches, so we dance in the moment.
Yeah.
So Amy, can you take over and share your slides? And actually what we'd like to do for those people who are on, if you could share the whiteboard for those people who are on virtually, and they can and people can share with us what are some of the opportunities that they see for coaching. Oh, Theodore, you're back.
I am back. Did I get kicked off?
You did, you froze. So we were about to share the whiteboard for people virtually so they could share their thoughts about, just type in, and I'll take some comments in the room. So when you think about coaching, what are some of the opportunities that you think coaching could address or could support in your organizations?
And let's just double check to make sure that you're able to use the annotate there when in the virtual environment. You should see annotate up at the top of your screen, and then click on the little T for text so you can add comments in. If for some reason you don't see it, you can go ahead and send me some comments in the Q&A as well. I think sometimes the annotate option is disabled for some agencies.
So one of the things that we see is around conflict resolution.
Okay, so I'm gonna type that in. So it can help with conflict resolution. I'm just typing in what we're hearing in the classroom. Others?
And I will type in what I have in the chat as well.
Thank you, Amy.
What about succession planning?
Mhm.
I think for us, we're really hoping that coaching will advance not only succession planning, but leadership skills for not just after 5 years.
Great. And we're seeing in the coming in,
Conflict resolution can go into that.
yeah, absolutely. Psychological,
Peer to peer too.
yeah, okay, peer to peer. We're seeing psychological safety, career growth, strengths and goals. Anything else in the room? All right.
We're getting some more on the chat too. And I think that poor Amy can't type fast enough.
Okay.
Well, we see your answers here, and they're yes, absolutely. What you're adding in here is excellent. So, so why doesn't the entire federal government have coaching programs? All of this is the potential here.
Yeah, it's a great
And it-
question, isn't it?
Well, they do. It's just, it's very limited in scope based upon funding.
Yeah, so their comment in the room was they do, but it tends to be limited in scope based on funding. And I think that's one of the things that when we can build the internal capacity and manage the programs well, we can actually do much, much more with our funding.
And I'm only one opinion of that. I mean, obviously other have thoughts too.
Other comments?
Employee retention.
Okay, employee retention is one of the benefits. I can. Anything? Okay. Yeah, so one of the challenges, and we'll talk a little bit about that, is measuring the ROI. And we actually will talk about the business case and how you build the business case, but that's a great point. Any other comments? All right, Theodore, I think we can move on, at least from the room perspective.
Yes. So as we look at this, I'd like to hear from someone online or in the room. What do you see here in all of these words? Let's hear from a couple of people.
We heard the word potential in the room,
Growth.
growth in the room.
And if anyone online wants to raise your hand, I can give you permissions to talk and weigh in as well.
Empowerment.
Empowerment from the room,
Also, it breaks down barriers.
breaks down barriers.
Breaks down barriers. Yes.
And Amy Piper put in the chat, I see a great place to work.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also have strengthens culture.
So we're seeing a lot of benefits from actually looking at coaching as a process. So Theodora, back to you.
Yes. Thank you so much. I want to take a screenshot of this. Oh, too late. It's gone.
I did it. I took a
Oh, you
screenshot.
did?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, because that is so beautiful, generated from the community. So let me see.
I put it back up if you wanted
all
to take another one.
Oh, that's good. That's good. If you did it, that's fine. Can we get back to the slides, please?
I'll just stop my share and then you can take it.
Thank
Or
you.
you should be able to hit new share.
I can't yet. Okay, I should be able to now. And I'm going to go share, and I'm going to go, oh, I'm right there. Can you see this? Yes, I think you can, right?
Looks
So
good.
you have answered the question about the opportunity for change. There's so much that having a coaching program can do for an organization. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on it.
Theodore,
Okay,
I think we
yes.
have someone who would like to unmute. Carrie Sanchez, did you want to weigh in?
Please do.
No?
No?
All right.
Thank you. So let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, let me see. That's me. Hold on. So my mouse is not cooperating. There we go. Sending it off to Alan.
All right, thank you so much. You know, one of the things that we found that was really important in, federal coaching, especially what we found over the years, is a story of resilience and a commitment to vision, improved government agency through coaching. And so the visions have this vision has led the way. for much of the things that are happening right now, for many of the things. And so create a vision by asking the following questions. What is your big dream? And what can you solve through coaching? And what support do you have? And then the other thing is to share your vision. And there are many examples that we found in our research, the last 30 years of agencies have actually started coaching programs going back as far as in the 90s of individuals who were totally committed to this dream, either by career coaching, they were doing career counseling and decided they wanted a different way of doing that, to leadership development programs. They started implementing coaching programs. And around 30 years ago too, we didn't even know what this was called. I can tell you from my own experience as a former therapist, I was just using my skills, but I saw the vision of that interpersonal relationship with another human being, asking you powerful questions. And what that can do for people. And so, especially as they're going through coach training programs, it just brought so much more life and vitality to the training programs that we were running. And then we kind of go into, I see it, Lynn Feingold's on the line here, and I just want to do a shout out to Lynn because she was one of the earlier pioneers that really, her and Sue Stein, who created this coaching consortium back in the day. This was several years ago. And she had the vision of this, and many few years after that, the Federal Coach Network came into being. Only because a few people like Lynn and Sue actually got up and said, "Hey, we want to do this. We need to do this." And at the time, the only way to get a coach, you had to go out and get a contract. And now, this was, we realized that the vision was, hey, you know what? We could do this probably just as well, if not better, than a contract coach. Why? Because we know the organization. We understand I like to call the animal called federal employee. And federal employees are different than the rest of the world, and for a variety of ways, right? So we actually brought that in. We can actually say, hey, I know you. I know the challenges you have. I can ask those questions that will help you get unstuck. And so, and then the Federal Coach Network was born, and I was part of that. And I call that the upper room experience, where we had other people just like me. I was in my agency at the time, trying to get stuff going in this arena, and other people had the same vision, and I never knew it. It was so exciting. And once other people got on board, then other things started to blossom, like the Federal Internal Coach Training Program. There was a policy, and by the way, Theodora's going to talk about the need for a policy, and she was instrumental in getting that a memo, the big OPM memo that we finally were able to get OPM to sign, or the director to sign. So there are many, many other examples, even to the present day. I know I had a great conversation with Jim Buckman, the CLO over at DOD, about what DOD is doing and what they're planning to do, and looking for a partnership with. I work at HHS FDA, so we're looking to partner with what they're doing and what HHS is doing. So all these other agencies now are getting together, and their resources are coming together. So we don't really need a contract to do this work. And so this is what's so exciting. So there are many other stories here, but I can go on and on and on. But I want to hand it back over to Mary Kate, who I believe the next slide.
Actually, Theodora will be talking about our business case,
Okay,
which answers the ROI question that was raised earlier. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, quite all right. So we're just sending it back and forth to each other. And so with that many coaches in the room, and with people who have coaching programs, we're not telling you anything you don't know, because anyone who becomes involved in coaching becomes what would you call it? An ambassador of it.
Yeah.
Or you know, they're evangelists even. I know that the three of us certainly have been, and I know many of you in the honest audience have been. So, okay, we get it, but we work in an organization where they don't get it, or they might not get it. And those that are going to give us funding that we might need to put on to hire a training organization to build internal coaches, or anything else that we want to spend money on for coaching, we have to make the business case. Okay, so we have to think a little bit creatively here. All of you, I love talking, all of you have something to do with training. I know that, whether you're a coach or not, and we're familiar with the Kirkpatrick model. So we need to hone in on that level 4 and 5 and to get kind of creative about that. So is it money? It could be money, it could be return on investment, but it also could be a return on value, or even as in the so I can give you a couple of examples, but the way the federal coaching program was able to get support from OPM and from the federal chief learning officers was to present a case of cost avoidance in the order of millions. Okay, so that's an opportunity too to consider. So focusing in on level 4 and 5 and being creative. Let me give you a list of some things that you want to measure. Sometimes we cannot prove exactly what the ROI is specifically, and prove it that this improvement happened because of coaching, but there's nothing wrong with correlating. What if things start to go up that the organization cares about, or go down, like increased customer satisfaction, things that you might measure, or employee satisfaction. Maybe that's in your FEV survey. You're capturing data from your FEV survey and correlating it with what you're doing with the coaching program. Improved productivity, reduced performance errors, increasing employee engagement, the reduction of attrition. So if you could say, this time last year, so many people were, left the organization, but this year, this much fewer left the organization. Is it definitely the coaching program? Maybe not, but it might also coincide with comments in the survey about the effects of coaching. This is how we were looking at it at the Defense Intelligence Agency, trying to pull out some of those things that were issues and important to the agency, and correlating how coaching was affecting the bottom line there. We have other examples to give you. Here's let me give you a couple of really good ones. Decreasing employee complaints. So how many times did coaching actually help an employee who's working through an issue and it never became a complaint? So correlating and making a business case. Maybe you can use, there are some examples of organizations that did find numbers that they could use and did make connection, which is what a correlation really is. There is a book, there are books out there that we could refer you to in terms of Jack Phillips has a book on coaching, the ROI of coaching. The three of us have referred to that book often and have used that information to help craft our own surveys and plans. There's no one right formula. We're not going to give you that. It depends on your organization. So let me ask you, what would be something in your organization that might be something that you can measure? If you don't mind, add some, if you have something, mention it in the room to Mary Kate and write it or write it in the chat here. What's something that you can measure that would be important to your agency?
And I'll just add, while people are thinking, I know sometimes it is hard to isolate things and you don't want to make too many assumptions. ITA, what they did with their evaluation is they did a pre-evaluation of coach clients and a post-evaluations using EVS questions. So those are questions that the agency is bought into, and they're very concerned with them going in the right, trending in the right direction. And actually, they were able to show that their clients, their post surveys, their EVS, the questions that correspond to the EVS went up much higher. So they were able to say that was directly related to the coaching evaluation. And we have a question.
Yeah, we were able to show that our coaching program, we took a look at promotions because we are engaging a leadership coaching model, and we're actually, the coaching program that we're doing involves all levels of staff all the way, and including our executive staff in the coaching groups that we do, the cohorts that we learn on our 4th cohort that's about to start. And what we're seeing is a consistently higher rate of promotion.
Nice.
Management, which that's one of the issues in government, is not only engaging, but also taking that talent and pushing it forward, and pushing talent throughout the organization. And we're seeing that start to happen.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm not sure you could hear all the comment, but basically, and can I get your agency? Lynn, your agency?
Oh, yeah, I'm at Federal Prison Industries.
Okay, Lynn at the Federal Prison Industries was sharing that they actually tracked the client's promotion rate. And so they had a higher rate of promotion. And the exciting thing about that, as she mentioned, is that, you know, coaching skills are skills that, as we said earlier, it's that managers need. So you're getting the right skills, you're preparing people for that. All right. Any other comments, questions in the room? Do we have any from the chat?
Do you think that agencies are maybe reluctant to have coaching programs because it's so difficult? Well, not difficult, but it's a challenge. It's kind of just, you know, finding the return on investment.
Yeah, there was a question in the room. Do we think that agencies are reluctant to set up coaching programs just because of this very question, is how do you build a business case? And yes, we'll go over some of the challenges of setting up a program very soon, but we have found that this is key to making sure that you, and again, we think that there's always going to be external coaches hired as well as internal, but you have to show the value of both. And it can be challenging, but it can be done. And so as Theodore mentioned, there's a great book out there, and you know, look for people like Lynn who has done that in their organization.
Well, I'm also going to tell you this, that we were able to initiate it. We did a very careful walkthrough of the ECQs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got the executive management buy-in, because it ties to so many skill sets that are needed for the ECQs. And once they realized that this could be applied at every level of the organization, the conversation just went off like fire.
Fabulous. So Lynn shared that they actually tied the coaching skill sets back to the ECQs, which the agency needed to have developed at all levels. And so that really supported it. So a lot of good people doing this work, and lots of people can support you. Anything online? Yes.
Yeah, Mary Kate, we do have a comment from Iris Capo. Retention is a big piece. We ask, am I more excited about the future to work with this organization?
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
I wanted to also mention at DIA that one of the things that we saw was how the internal coaches, you know, were transformed human beings. They absolutely were transformed. So after they became a trained coach, they started coaching in the organization. But we wanted to see how they themselves, as leaders with coaching skills, were having an effect in their workplace. So what we did was ask them directly, what is the impact on your work? What, you know, and to ask about their peers, their direct reports, and what would they say? And then we asked them, after we got their input, we asked them to send a different link to a survey to those individuals to get their input about this leader's behavior in the organization. All of it was completely voluntary. It was just by links. And it was just astounding what we found. So it wasn't just the coach themselves, the coach leader talking about it, but the people around them. So I just wanted to share that one too.
Nice. And I know we could probably do a whole hour just on return on investment, but we want to share some other aspects
certainly.
of the program. So we're going to move ahead to the challenges. As I mentioned earlier, we actually did a lot of research, and we interviewed people who were involved with programs, and we looked at programs. And the interesting thing is there were a lot of programs that had a lot of support. In fact, there were award-winning programs, and they would be doing really great. And then all of a sudden they would disappear. And while there was no one answer to it, we found a couple consistent things that you want to watch out for and be aware of if you're setting up a program, or if you're looking at your program. Kind of one of the things, if you have a program, we encourage you to kind of do an audit of what's my program doing and how can I leverage some of these thoughts. So one of the things that we found is that coaching often came to an agency or an organization because there was an executive or a leader who, had the power. They got a coach, they loved it, and they wanted to just spread that coaching. So they were able to implement something and fund it. And the challenge with that is if you have, one person who's your main stakeholder, if you don't spread that out and get more, when that person goes, the program goes. And we found that in multiple cases. Also, one of the things is you have to educate people as to what coaching is and isn't. We found that that's a constant challenge of people who are promoting programs. And if the agency, across the agency, didn't have a good understanding, and it didn't become part of their cultural language, and they didn't have a shared definition of coach, it was really hard for the coaching program to have a long lifespan. And one of the other things is you need to align it with either initiatives or functions that exist that are already in part of the organization fabric, structure, culture. Without that, again, we found that what we often find is that you have one or two passionate people about coaching. They start to set up a little shop as kind of other duties as assigned. And if it doesn't become integrated into the fabric of the agency, it's very easy for it to lose funding, lose support, and the person, even if they're in the agency, is asked to stop coaching. So again, some of the things you want to look out for, and it's just when you build the case, you also have to kind of bring people along with you and get those stakeholders, those champions, and get the culture to understand what coaching is. So now we'll move into, so we've gone over what was some of the challenges. Well, we also identified predictors of success.
Yeah, and that was, and actually to kind of piggyback off what Mary Kate was saying, one of the things in order to maintain, and retain a really great program, there are some common underlying factors. The predictors of success are evident among the most successful federal coaching programs in the research that we did. And so the most successful coaching programs in government have sponsorship and support from the top. Now, and let me just say a couple words about that. There have been a few of the programs that were a grassroots, started out. Many of the programs I did were clandestine, but here what we're talking about is the predictor of success long-term. You have to have that top support. And so like Mary Kate was saying, get that top support, get that person a coach. And I guarantee you they'll become, evangelists for coaching once they experience the transformation for themselves. And this is what we found throughout DIA, GSA, the Federal Internal Coach Training Program, has support from OPM director, as well as the Chief Learning Officers Council, and many other programs across the federal government, TEI, Treasury Executive Institute, the IRS, and many, many more who have been successful or still running successful programs. And many agency programs find success by aligning coaching to leadership development programs. And we found this to be consistent, pretty consistent. And why? Well, We also know too, that, sending people off to a leadership development program is great. We love it. This is what we do for a living. However, we want it to stick. And so coaching seemed to really work nicely if you had a coach helping that leader implement the skills they just learned. And then we learned then we found the transfer of learning is much greater than if they had not a coach and helping them after that program. In addition, some predictors when there are employees who are ready to take on extra challenges and there is dedicated funding for the program. So yeah, that's also very, that's one point here too. I'll tell you what, people who are willing, and so if you can actually get the money to fund certain parts of the program, that's also, it'll have a long-term effects for greater sustainability. So marketing was also identified as an important factor for success. One thing that I found even in my own work around this is that people tell me all the time, I never knew you existed. I didn't know that we had a program. I didn't know, so I just kept hearing this over and over. And also the people we interviewed were saying the same things. So a major marketing push. There is a true about the marketing, once people know it's there, then people were afraid that we wouldn't be able to, handle all of the requests. So that was kind of so I look at that as a really nice thing, a good problem to have, And so we have again, we mentioned the DIA, also a successful program. DAU, the Defense Acquisitions University, still has a program running to this day. So many others are out there and actually starting as we speak. So I'm going to hand it over to, I think it's, yes.
Okay,
Mary Kate.
so thank you, Alan. So, one of the things, and I don't know that it's because I have a lot of private industry experience. I don't know that it's just in government, but it definitely runs across government, is we are often kind of building the plane as we're starting to fly it. We, there's a let's hurry up, get something going, get it out there. We'll kind of, it's kind of we do things in a very agile way where we get it out there, we start fixing it. And there is some wisdom to starting off intentionally, especially with something like coaching where people may not understand it, where it's not part of your culture. If you start off intentionally, you really have the ability to reduce some of the risks that goes. There are some risks anytime you have a program, and you can also you can build your credibility. And credibility in coaching is really important because you've got to have that confidentiality. You've got to have that trust. And so people in the organization, especially the clients, need to feel that they're working with a credible program manager, a credible program. So you really want to start off intentionally. Now, if you haven't started off intentionally, that's okay, because you can use this information and go back and do a little audit. You really want to define who your audience is. Sometimes you can't coach everybody. Many organizations will say, we're going to coach, certain grades or certain participants in leadership. So you really want to define your audience so that you can manage your intake and that you don't end up with a long waiting list. TEI has helped many people, many of our partners establishing their coaching programs. And one of the things that we do is we back them up. So if they get too many requests, we make sure that we have some coaches that can step in, because the last thing you want is to have this wonderful, outpouring of requests and then say, oh, guess you can wait 6 months. So we actually make agreements so that we can support them in their efforts. You want to know the types of coaches, how you're going to train your coaches. You need to have guidelines, policies, standards. What resources are you going to have? Where are you going to be in the organization? And so you really want to consider all of these things up front. So there is a lot. It's like any other program. And I think what happens sometimes is people think, okay, we've got 4 coaches, let's go out and start coaching. And you haven't kind of built the structure that you need in order to really support a program. And so again, some of these questions will help you. And the other thing, if we can go to the next slide, is think about the tools and templates you need. because when you need to have agreements, you need to have a request form, you need to have a standard operating procedure. If you have a group of coaches, you need to have coach bios that you can either share with your clients, or at least as the manager, you understand who your cadre is. So you want to establish these documents and forms in advance if you can. Again, this is a list of common ones that we found that were helpful to organizations. And by doing this, you can also build in the mechanisms that you want to for your evaluation. You want to build in your evaluation so that you are, as you have clients coming through and people partnering, that you're able to evaluate their work. So evaluations are especially one of the important tools that you're going to want to build. And the other thing is, remember branding. You know, sometimes we're so busy to get something out that we don't think about what's that consistent look, because you really do want to brand the program, because you're going to be doing some good things. And you want the people who are working with you and who are giving you your information and who you're sharing with to be able to know who's doing it for them. Very often, without the marketing and the branding, people know that they're getting a great service. A lot of times they assume it's being done by a contractor. It's not an internal service if it's internal. So you want to be able to think about that branding. So any questions about getting started, or any comments, suggestions, something that you'd like to add?
Yeah, Mary
Or-
Kate, we have a question in the chat here.
Okay.
The question is around advertising or marketing. Can you provide some ideas other than email? What can we do to market our program to get the word out?
Okay, great question. And I'll get started. We can, Theodora, Allen, you can add to it. I know, one of the big marketing things that you need to consider is you really need to educate what coaching is and what it isn't, because you want people to come and have the service. So one of the things that you will often do is have sessions. We'll go to meetings, maybe take 10 minutes, just explain what coaching is and isn't. It's just standing meetings and explain how people can get a coach. So we're not like having to pull people in, but we find that actually talking about it and sharing it is really valuable. But we also have brochures we have a TEI website that we have a page dedicated to coaching that has a couple of videos. One of the best ways to market, and Alan mentioned it earlier, is to actually get coaches for some of your strategic leaders, because when they experience it and they can talk about it, it means a lot. So your best marketers, we find, are often the clients that have gone through the program, which is why it's so important to start intentionally. You want those people who have had that experience to go on and share, I was able to do this, and to kind of be your referrals. We find that to be very powerful. Alan or Theodora, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, so the issue is that you may be a good coach and you're a good government employee and you have whatever experience you have, maybe in some technical area that you learn as a government employee, but you're not necessarily a marketer. So that for me also was an area of weakness. So we were very, very keen to watch one individual who we interviewed, who had a bit of a background in marketing and just knew the importance of constantly sharing information. First of all, she herself, anyone she would meet and say, hello, how are you? Do you have a coach? I mean, she literally was a walking ambassador of coaching. And she also knew how to create newsletters. She knew how to keep coaching in the forefront of everyone's mind. So whatever you can come up with. One of the things we did at DIA is we created a video that was a great kind of soup to nuts explanation of what coaching was, and how it works, and its benefits, and how you can get one. And this video was periodically displayed on many TV sets all over the place, all over the agency. Anyone who needed it and wanted it could have it. It served for a long, long time. So that's, yeah.
I was gonna say, and leverage the people who really do know how to market. A lot of us are lucky enough to have graphics people and people around us that we can reach out to support us. So look, if, you know, we don't have all the skills we need to do our jobs. So look for those people who can help you and supplement.
And to the point of going back even to the business case about the people really don't buy things based on statistics, and they buy things based on emotion. And one of the things to do is continually tell the story, like Theodore was saying. Just tell the story about what your own transformation, you know, talk about you know, what coaching has done for others. You don't have to mention any names because of confidentiality, but, you know, people tell stories about what has happened for them. And these are compelling stories, and people are motivated, and they get to say, hey, I want that. And so it's really, you don't really have to be a marketer to do that. It's really relationship marketing is what we call it. You know, it's really sitting down and saying, hey, what do you need in order to be successful in your job? And just listening and saying, hey, yeah, I might be able to help you with that. It just ask you a few questions, and really getting to know other people and really talking about their needs and what bothers them. We do know that people don't get up one morning and say, gosh, I want to buy a coach. Nobody does that. What they do is that, hey, they got a problem and they need someone that they don't know where to go for help. So you might be that person that just sits there and listens to them about some of their problems. And the questions you ask, you say, hey, you ever thought about hiring a coach? Or, you know, I'm happy to coach you. That's actually how I got most of my clients, was just by listening. And so I just wanted to, you know, kind of go back to that story. It's also telling the story.
Yeah. And just to wrap up, people don't usually like statistics, but what we did find, there are some, the International Coach Federation and some other studies have some really powerful statistics about what coaching can do for an organization. And we have shared those with leaders. And one of our most successful brochures, it actually just it explains what coaching is, but then in the text box, it says people pay hundreds of dollars, which they do. They usually pay over $300 an hour to get a coach. To get a coach, you can have one for free.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, there is a real value and there's a cost savings to people in the agency. So that was one of the things to actually let people know, like, this is what the going rate is. And it's not cheap. So I'm going to turn over and look at this Vibrant program with Theodora.
Yes, thank you. So once you've established the program, you've got your coaches, you're not done. If you want this program to continue, you have to keep monitoring things, creating things. So maintaining senior leader support and engagement with other internal partners. So at the DIA, when I lost our phenomenal senior champion, Mr. Herrick, when he went on, it felt like we had another very, very high level executive who was also a coach and an advocate. But we were running out of people at the high level. So we thought, my partners and I thought, well, what can we do to get another senior champion? And what we did is we did approach the director and made our case. We had numbers with us. We had anecdotes with us. And we asked him if he'd had a coach. He had it. So we didn't convince him to get one, but we did manage to get his buy-in so that he would start talking about coaching right alongside of talking about mentoring. The military folks definitely understand mentoring, but to educate him in terms of the difference between coaching and mentoring so that he could speak on our behalf. So another thing you need to do is, if you have coaches, they're government employees, they're going to move on. So you need to keep adding coaches to your cadre, whether it's you're training them yourself or your whatever it is you're doing. You need to keep getting funding by selling it to your leadership and acquiring and retaining coaches in order to keep the program vibrant, right? So you yourself as a leader of the program need to be on top of it in terms of what is needed for coaching agreements, as Mary Kate pointed out, any policy that you need to put in place, you know, and for the coaches themselves. I'll talk in a minute about professional development, but putting in mentoring and supervision to keep them growing and getting better, and they'll love that, and they get credit for it. So I will continue, so more training and to keep the program running. I don't want to run it out of time here. Let's move to the next one. If I can get my mouse to cooperate. There we go.
Yeah, and
Alan, is that you?
yeah, that's me. So, you know, and what Theodora is really talking about is this whole sustainability issue. And also, in order to maintain a good program, we've actually, you know, and the three of us were part of a governance board of the Federal Internal Coach Training Program. And so, and the purpose of that program was to, you know, we wanted to promote fair and positive behavior as part of the program. And also the EIA also had a governance board in their program as well. And coaching program managers should create the governance structure that formally defines coaching for the organization. And so this governance includes the development of policies and practices, the limits of confidentiality, and then coaching agreements, professional code of ethics for coaches, information on potential conflicts of interest, the roles and responsibilities for those involved in the program, administrators, coaches, and clients. And to that end too, and then this board would be also another way of sustaining the program, because these people would be people who are senior to the organization, who are also could also be other coaches. But we're recommending that they be managers and leaders in the organization who will oversee the program. And that's also a way to keep sustaining it. Because guess what? People do leave and they move on, they retire, they get other jobs, they get promoted, can't serve in that particular role anymore. So to have other people involved, it's just a way of expanding the network, so to speak. And this program, the people on this board will ensure that the coaching program is still viable. It's keeping up with all the rules and regulations, the ICF ethics, and all the other things that go along with making sure a program is effective. Mary Kate or Theodora, any more comments around establishing good governance? No.
And just the policy to whatever you can put in writing. Recommendation is look at what the policies are for your agency around conduct for employees, and pay attention to that, because you might need to put that into your documentation for your coaches. For example, in the agreement, you might need to work with your legal department to make sure that whatever it is you're making anybody sign is in fact approved by your organization. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Mary Kay, did you have anything?
I don't, except that, you know, when we talked to programs, we found that this was probably the weakest area.
Yeah.
And what we thought was kind of interesting in government, because everything seems to be so regulated and people want to know about policy. And we found that people were kind of ignoring it. They were just kind of, you know, going rogue and doing it. And then they said, well, we'll make up the rules as we go along. So it was fascinating to me that there was not a lot of good governance examples that we could cite when we were talking to the different programs.
Theodora, I'm going to hand it back over to you to talk about professional development.
Thank you. Okay, so this is also another important area. You're focusing on your cadre, however you got them. If you can provide them training, keeping them refreshed on policies, you know, around coaching. We in the government are mostly aligned to the International Coaching Federation, although that's not a rule, but it is the biggest one, and they do make an effort to provide those standards that we can follow as coaching professionals. But one of the reasons you want to keep focus and stay connected and keep communicating and provide training to your and supervision and mentoring to your coaches is because you want the whole coaching to be safe in your organization. You're not in the room with that coach and that client. So you want to make sure that they have the latest on ethics, on conduct of behavior for your organization, that they're not causing any harm to anyone. So we're protecting the client, we're protecting the coach, we're protecting the organization, and actually we're protecting the profession itself. Okay, because if we go out there and we put all these coaches out there, we don't give them any guidelines, we don't give them any standards to follow, there could be a problem. And they could, you know, at least these were my concerns at the beginning of my experience at the agency. And this is why I was very, very focused on professional development for our coaches. Anyone else have anything on this one?
I think also the thing with professional development is many of your coaches, they have day jobs. So while most of them love to coach, it's their passion, it gives them energy, but they're having to do this on top of their other assigned work. And so for me, building a strong professional development program for our cadre of coaches was really important. And I know that kept some of them engaged because we made it really easy for them to get their continuing education when they were credentialed coaches. They didn't have to go out and look for it. We gave them the opportunities. So it was actually a win-win for everybody. We knew it was helping them with their skill levels. It was making it easier for them to get their training, which they needed.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that is that, you know, let's say in the agencies I work for, we never had any money. So, you know, just because you don't have money, that's not really an excuse not to do professional development, because you can partner with other people, you know, who are just like yourself, because they may have money or they may have opportunities, or you can create your own stuff, you know. Again, you know, with the Federal Coach Network, they have the quarterly webinars now. I mean, I know it's not a lot, could be more, I guess, but, you know, we can also partner with other people to offer other opportunities. And our big one, the big one is coaching supervision. The need for that is so great now. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as something that is moving forward in government. People are having conversations now about how do we support our coaches long term.
We're going to wrap up. We've got about 3 more minutes left. So Theodore, you want to wrap up and then we'll take a question or two.
Yeah, so this is just another, so let's say you didn't have any money at all, which you may not. And you are a coach and you want to promote coaching skills throughout the organization. So you can introduce other training to your leaders, and maybe we have, you know, there are some programs floating around out there where that exists that you might be able to adapt to your own needs as government employees. You could institute peer coaching. So these are things that don't necessarily cost you additional funding that you might be able to implement. Be creative. I encourage you to be creative in offering what you can. If you can't, you know, buy external coaches or train internal coaches, maybe you can do some of these things. And so, Mary Kate, let me hand it back to you and any questions that we might be able to get from the audience.
Any questions, either in the chat, and I can stay for a few minutes here, but any questions from the room or any questions in the chat? We'll go over here.
So how is it that the organizations actually gauge that they're actually getting a good coach? So you want to go into a coaching program and you know, notwithstanding, a lot of times you may have a cadre of individuals and they have all the appropriate qualifications. But, you know, is there a matching process that you go through in order to make sure that you have the right person with the right coach? Or, you know, what kind of experience have you had with individuals and possibly moving through several coaches because they're just not thinking that they're achieving what they want to accomplish.
Okay, great. So, so the question is, how do we know how to match the right coach with the right client? And I think a lot of this, there's two ways. We will often have the bios so that the client, like we may say, oh, we based on what the request form and we ask what they're looking for, we will have information that from the client. And then we might say, hey, here's 3 coaches we think might work. And we let the client choose. In like a TEI, we actually do assign, we know our coaches really well, those who do the assignments. And it's interesting how you can read a form. Sometimes if you're not getting enough from the form, we'll actually call up the client and get more information, and then we'll assign the coach. But one of the really important things is we always have an intake session. And so we ask the coach and the client to meet one time and just kind of set, go over the agreement, set up what their goals are. And then we do teach, and it's part of coaching. Every session has a goal. So at the beginning, the coach is setting the goal, they're checking in with the client. So it really is making sure that your coaches are properly trained and that they're aligning with the real coach process. And if you're doing that, I think it works. But at the end of the intake session, if they feel like it's not a good match, or at any time, when we assign a coach, we always let both coach and client know if at any time it doesn't feel like it's working, you just get back in touch with the program manager and we reassign. And we've never had to reassign more than one time, and it's probably less than 2% that we've reassigned. So I don't know, Theodore or Alan, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I would add too is that it also, for every coach, this is why it's so important, at least if they have some type of ICF credential. And the reason is someone has listened to their coaching and provided feedback on it, or mentored them in order to be an effective coach. And so, and this is why training is so important. In order to get an ICF credential, you have to go through a whole process, and that give feedback. You have to submit a recording. ICF has to approve it. So there's some mechanism in place where someone has actually been provided. Now, does that make them a great coach? Well, it also is the relationship. You really can't tell for sure, because it really depends. Coaching is a relationship, and with every relationship, human beings, it really depends. So, but at least at a minimum, we know if you go through the Federal Internal Coach Training Program or the TEI program, we know someone has listened to those tapes and said, yes, that person is a coach. I don't know if that, Theodora, have anything to add to that?
I was going to say, we're at 11:03, so we can take a couple of questions, and if people want to hang on, we can continue going, but I want to acknowledge that we are over.
Mary Kate, there is a question in the chat.
Okay, and then we have one more in the room.
Okay. What kind of training can I take to help me learn to brand?
Oh, to help you learn to brand. Even within the coaching community, I know ICF and several other, they actually have professional sessions on how you can think about brand and brand yourself. There is a lot out there. It's a marketing, and it's a niche all its own. So you can take sessions on how to brand your business or how to brand yourself. Even as a professional in an organization, you are your brand. So you can think about, branding is really how you show up. So if you Google brand, and you might want to ask some other coaches what they have done. I know I took a workshop years ago that was an internal workshop about, how do you brand yourself as a professional? So you can ask others about it too.
I'm reminded of a book by William Bridges, where it's the UN Company, YOU and Company. He talked about this whole notion of branding yourself in an organization. It's an old book, but yeah.
And Lynn had a question. I just want to make sure we get.
Thank you. And I guess I'm just throwing this out for food for thought. There needs to be a federal coaching alliance. It will help.
Mhm.
And, it'll help new folks walking in and trying to organize their organizations, but it also helps those of us who are in the very infancy of our coaching programs, which I consider us at. to really have a forum to meet with folks who've gone further on the continuum. And I don't know that anybody has made the effort to do that. I know OPM is offering coaching and, you know, solicits from agencies to have staff participate and become coaches. But we don't have an alliance where we can pull together,
Right.
you know, in the discipline.
Yes.
As we're building it, and I really think it's needed.
Yeah, we actually, for about 6 years, TEI did. We partnered with OPM and we brought coaches together. We had a list of about 100 people that would come together for quarterly meetings. We had to give up that effort a couple years ago because of our resources, and so we kind of turned it back to OPM. But that's a good comment, and I think
Well,
if-
OPM's looking to build this, so I think it's time to.
yeah, if anybody wants to step back into that space, that, like I said, 2 years
Yeah.
ago, and it was during COVID and all, so people were, I think, otherwise consumed. But if anybody contact any of us or Liz Winters over at or Rodriguez now over at OPM.
Yeah.
And let her know, because we had done it for so long, we just didn't have the resources, but we found it to be a really effective way to we would bring everybody together and share. Sometimes we had presentations, sometimes we just had open discussions. So, all right.
I
Thank
talked to
you.
Liz about that the other day, Mary Kate.
Oh,
And
good.
OPM is in the plans of kind of resurrecting that. So
Oh, great.
more on that. Okay.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We are happy to support, and I'll be honest, we share a lot. So if on that list of forms, you saw something, you're like, oh, I don't have one of those, contact us. We'll send you it. We love to share. And so thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you that are joining us virtually, you can join at 12:30 for Unlocking the Virtual Twins, AI and Immersive Learning in the Metaverse. So again, that's at 12:30. You.